Laura lived with her father in a quiet, old castle hidden deep in the forests of Styria. Their life was peaceful but lonely, shaped by the stillness of the woods and the echo of long hallways. Her mother had died years ago, and the estate saw few visitors. As a child, Laura often felt isolated, and the silence of the place sharpened her imagination. When she was 6 years old, she experienced something she never forgot. One night, she woke to find a young woman lying beside her in bed. The stranger was beautiful, with a soft face and long dark hair. At first Laura thought she was dreaming, but the weight of the woman's body and the warmth of her presence felt real. As Laura stared, unable to move or speak, the woman leaned close as if to embrace her. Laura felt a sudden pressure on her chest, followed by a strange, soothing calm that washed over her. She fell back asleep, only to wake moments later screaming. When her governess rushed in, Laura insisted the woman had been real, but the adults calmed her with the usual explanations. They said it was only a nightmare. Still, the memory stayed bright in her mind, the face too clear to dismiss. Years passed, and Laura grew into a thoughtful young woman who longed for companionship. She had learned to live with solitude, but she wished for a friend who understood her. Her father was kind and attentive, yet even he noticed the quiet sadness in her. The castle felt too big for just the two of them. One warm evening, Laura and her father took a walk along the path outside their home. The sky glowed with the last light of sunset. As they walked, a carriage approached at high speed, its horses agitated and difficult to control. Before anyone could react, the carriage overturned with a violent crash. Laura and her father rushed forward. A young girl lay inside, unconscious but alive. A woman who claimed to be her mother stepped out moments later, pale and anxious, insisting that she had urgent business that could not wait. Laura began waking in the night with a strange heaviness in her body. At first she blamed it on restless sleep, but soon she started feeling a pressure on her chest, as if someone were leaning over her. She would sit up gasping, her heart racing, and see nothing except the flicker of shadows on the walls. Sometimes she thought she heard breathing close to her ear, soft and slow, fading the moment she lit a candle. By morning she felt tired and shaken, though she tried not to worry her father. Carmilla noticed her discomfort immediately. She sat beside her with a tenderness that felt almost too intense. When Laura told her about the nightmares, Carmilla's eyes softened, and she held Laura's hand with a grip that felt both protective and possessive. She whispered that she hated to see Laura afraid and spoke with a kind of emotion that felt deeper than simple friendship. Laura could not deny that Carmilla's presence calmed her, but at the same time the closeness made her pulse quicken in a way she didn't fully understand. Strange things began happening in the castle. Servants reported seeing Carmilla walking outside late at night, though she always denied leaving her room. Once, an old stone door in the hallway, one no one ever used, was found wide open in the morning. The servants swore they had heard footsteps echoing through the halls after midnight. Laura tried not to give in to superstition, but even she felt something unsettling in the air. The rumors outside the estate grew darker. More young women in nearby villages had fallen ill. They described the same nightmares Laura was now having. Pale faces, trembling hands, sudden weakness. Some were said to have spoken of a woman visiting them at night, though no one ever saw her. Doctors were confused, and villagers whispered about spirits. Laura tried to ignore the fear these stories stirred in her, but she couldn't stop thinking about how her dreams had grown more vivid since Carmilla arrived. One afternoon, Laura's strength began to slip away day by day. At first she tried to hide it, but the weakness became too real to ignore. She woke each morning paler than the last, her limbs heavy, her pulse faint. The dreams grew sharper. Every night she felt someone leaning over her, whispering words she couldn't understand, pressing cold lips against her throat. When she forced herself awake, the room always looked empty, but she felt the presence lingering like a shadow behind her. She tried to convince herself it was only fear, but a quiet certainty grew inside her. Carmilla was always the last face she imagined before falling asleep, and somehow the dreams began to borrow Carmilla's features. In those night visions, Carmilla wasn't warm or playful. She looked older, almost ancient, with eyes that glowed from the dark. Laura hated herself for thinking this way, yet she couldn't stop the images from returning. During the day, Carmilla watched her with a strange mix of affection and hunger. When Laura trembled, Carmilla held her tightly as if she wanted to protect her. But at other times she looked at Laura with a yearning that made Laura's heart beat faster, not with comfort but with fear. When Laura asked for honesty, Carmilla's answers slid away from the truth. She whispered that they were bound together, that no force on earth could part them, and that she cared for Laura more deeply than anyone ever had. The words were sweet, but the intensity behind them felt overwhelming. One night, Laura woke with a sharp sting on her neck. She pressed her fingers to the spot and felt 2 tiny wounds. She cried out, and her father ran into the room, startled by the panic in her voice. The servants rushed in behind him, lighting candles and checking every corner of the room. Nothing was out of place except Laura's trembling hands and her rising fever. A doctor was summoned immediately. The doctor examined her quietly and with growing concern. After asking several questions about her, night settled over the castle with a strange stillness, as if the air itself were waiting. Laura stayed awake with effort, her breathing shallow and her strength fading faster than before. A candle flickered beside her bed, and the room felt colder than it had the night before. Outside her door, the general's men kept watch, but Laura sensed that if Carmilla wanted to reach her, no locked door would stop her. Just past midnight, Laura felt a familiar pull, almost like her spirit was drifting away from her body. Her eyes grew heavy despite the pain in her chest. She tried to call out, but her voice barely rose above a whisper. The candle dimmed suddenly, as if a shadow had passed directly across the flame. Laura felt someone's presence near her bed, quiet and close. Carmilla stepped from the darkness. Her face looked the same as always, beautiful and calm, but there was something different in her eyes. They held an ancient sorrow, mixed with a hunger she didn't try to hide anymore. She knelt beside the bed and touched Laura's cheek with a tenderness that felt both comforting and frightening. She whispered that she had never meant to harm her, that her feelings were real, that she had been lonely for centuries and had found something in Laura that she could not let go of. She begged Laura to come away with her, promising a life without sickness, without death, a bond that would last beyond time. Laura wanted to speak, but her strength slipped again. The room blurred, and Carmilla leaned closer, her expression torn between love and desperation. Before she could touch her lips to Laura's neck, the door burst open. The general and her father rushed in with 2 armed men. Carmilla turned toward them with a sound that was neither human nor entirely animal, a sharp cry full of fury and heartbreak. She darted across the room with impossible speed and vanished through a side doorway before anyone could reach her. The general shouted for the men to follow. Laura's father.